Hello. So this is our senior project. I'm Chris, and this is Elijah. And we did StatMaster, which is a tournament bracket um, simulator, as well as a way of tracking play results for the St. Martin's Ping Pong Club. Our motivation for doing this was that we were interested in the algorithm that came with creating a bracket because it sounded complex and fun to have to go through the logical thought process behind how to do it. Um, and we also wanted to combine HTML with C Sharp, which was a concept we hadn't really done before. And it kind of created a new challenge that we haven't had to deal with so far at St. Martin's. And it was kind of interesting. Um, so it was done because we wanted to help the ping pong club after hearing them say that it was hard for them to run brackets at the local student commons because they couldn't have a fair way of ordering the players. So that way, not the best players were playing the same people every time. Um, and then,
So for our web page that we want to create for the Ping Pong Club, which is a bracket viewer, which is a live simulation of a bracket like March Madness, for example, we are using ASP.NET Core. This, in my opinion, this is more superior than the applications, just because of the framework that it allows us to do, which is build injections into, for example, SQL Server with like Entity Framework, and that's why we're utilizing the .NET Core as our platform of creating our web page. It also allows us to be able to take the C# code for the algorithm and be able to input it into a view for a web page design. Um, Basically, another reason why we wanted to create this web page is so then the client in the ping pong club can be able to have a clean view of how to input data, players, and other things like that. It just makes it so much easier for them. They can all just do it all in one place. And the pages that we are planning on building for as of right now is just the bracket viewer, which will act as the March Madness bracket and have live simulations of keeping track of who's won, who's lost, and then continue and then saving the bracket at the end of the match and claiming who's the winner. However, the main so when I went back to using the framework for connecting to the database, that's the main reason why the core is what we needed to use. It's because of the entity framework. It will allow us to be able to build tables, databases, input values, and create relationships between other tables, and that can be all contained into one place. So then we don't have to have code in MySQL Server. It can all just be in the core. The database will contain the three tables. One will be our master table, which will contain the login information, passwords, emails, use like the past matches that they have performed. It will also later on we are planning on adding a profile page or a contact us page. They can all their information will be stored in there as well. Then there's a match history table that's recordings of past matches. So the brackets that already went through and simulated who's the winner, it'll keep track of all right who won and what seed, and then it will keep track of all that and keep it in a previous bracket. So then they can go back and view it. Then the admin table. This will be only allowed for certain people to access and give them certain rights over the whole website. They can edit the brackets. They can edit members' stats. They can give admin rights to other members as well, who they see fit. Either it's someone taking over the club or BP other things like that. And this code that you see down here, this is the first one, the configure services. That is what is linking the core to our database. The So what it's doing, it's calling a model, which is configuring the rights and rules of the table and the database. And then it says options using SQL Server, and then server, that is my SQL Server, and then that's my login. Then that's the database that's creating in there. So then it ensures that there's a database that is being in use. And then it's just connecting through the most trusted way of connection. Underneath, you can see the configuration method or public value. Um, you can see that there's a login provider dot service provider service. Basically, what that is saying is that even though it's up in this code is in the startup position, it will call from one of the other tables from a different page, like the insert table, where it can get the information for the inputs, where to input them, what the value is for them, and also it calls other things like the rules and the relationships between the tables. That is solely what that piece of line of code is for. And yeah.
So here's the tournament system. For bracket generation, instead of using an array, we decided to use a dictionary, which will receive a value and a key, which I will later explain. And we're going to include the result history of players, which when you click on their name on the web page, it will display the records they have with other players in head-to-heads, along with the seeding, which if you don't know, seeding is a way of ordering a tournament so that way the best players play for last, or not for last, but they play at the end of the tournament. Because you don't want to have the best players playing round one of the tournament and then the other players are just playing through the rest because it's not fair to the other players that didn't earn the spot they did, like the better players did. As you can see on the right, there's the logic. So there's the dictionary that's initialized. Um, and when you go into the do while statement or the do while loop, it has a console.write line which asks you to enter from first seed to last seed and then type done when you're finished. I think we are going to revise this as we near the end of this project because right now there's no way to order the seeds once you input the names in. So if you forget someone's name, you have to redo the whole do while loop. And so as you add names to it, the amount goes up by one, and it'll take the response and enter the response into the bracket with a bracket.add statement. And it'll tell you if you added them because it'll say you entered the player's name, which is response, into the tournament. But if you type done, which is cap sensitive, it will check if that is true using um, a bool statement. And if it is true, then it will continue on and um, use buys, which if you don't know, buys are a way to make it so that way brackets are multiples of two. So if it was 10 people, it would have to increase it to 16. If it was 20, it would have to increase it to 32. And these other spaces that aren't filled by players would be entered as buys, which um, essentially just let the player move on for free without having to play anyone. So that way the bracket will be a more organized tournament. And it does this by setting B as 1 and then multiplying it by 2 for each iteration of the while loop. And when B finally surpasses amount, which is the amount of players in the bracket, it will subtract the difference between B and the amount, and that determines the buys, and then adds them to the bracket using I as the amount plus 1, which would continue from where the players were left off. And then it uses a for each statement to list the players and the buys of the tournament for the player to view. For the elo system, this is another thing we want to do. This is more of a way of suggesting the order or the ranking of players, less so than the objective ranking of players, because um, as you know, algorithms don't, they always have some kind of bias with them. Um, it's almost impossible to not have one. Um, and so we're going to be adjusting it as we get more data from the ping pong club, so that way it'll be more accurate. But at first, it'll be very inaccurate, and um, we're going to be using MySQL, which is the database that Elijah's making, which will make it so that way it'll calculate the head-to-heads with the other players, with their wins and losses, as well as their placings in these tournaments, to create a numerical value associated with how good their skill is, the higher the number being, the better they are. And then it will be displayed on the web page in a list format for easy viewing for whoever visits.
Potential improvements that we want to feature into our project here is the ability to log in. We want them to be able to log in just for security of the page, and then also just so then other people can't just come in and mess with the brackets and the fairness of these tournaments that the ping pong club will be hosting, because it will be on St. Martin's page, but we want them to be required to log into the page, so then we don't have this people from the university just playing tricks on the ping pong club. Another feature that we want to add is the news and events feeds. This is going to act kind of like your Instagram or Facebook feed. They can post and share news about the either what's going on in campus or even what's just going on within the ping pong club or interesting ping pong artifacts like articles that they find online. They can post and share and act it like it's a social media platform. We don't want to add flexibility to the user interface. So when we mean like that, we mean when the live bracket is running, we don't want players to be able to, oh, we want to flip these people around because this will be a more unfair matchup. We want it just to be strict and want it to not to be able to be that flexible. Only the admins should have the right to be able to change the seeds, but even so, they should change them only at the beginning of the match. Future pages that we want to add, news and events, a contact us. So if there's like viruses or something's not working properly on the pages, they can be able to contact us and we can be able to repair it. A change log. So when either a seeds are changed or not changed, they will be documented in the change log. So then for future reference, they can see the changes that have happened. Bracket history, recordings of past brackets that were used and simulated. They can keep track of who's won this many times, or they can just look back just to see for future references. And then a user page, basically, it's like your Facebook setup. They can have like a profile picture, a bio, um, other fun facts and their past history of matches will be stored on there as well. And then also, that's where they can determine about the admin rights as well. This is our project for 2020. Thank you for listening and have a good day.